Hello, Internet. This is LordMaddog, and today we're going to do another SOULSLIKE project tutorial. And today we're going to talk about skills. And I'll be honest with you, skills are a bit more in depth than just adding items. They are items, but they have a little bit more things you need to fill out. So instead of what I've normally done is where I do and create it on screen, I've already created it off screen, and then we're going to just go over and talk about it and exactly what I changed and what needs to be done and what those stats do. So let's jump right on in. The first thing we had started last time with our artifact, we had created our artifact with floating lamp. And what I've done is I've gone ahead and I've changed that floating lamp into a skill. So I'll show you a skill. I'll go ahead and learn it real quick and use it, and then we'll talk about it. So this is right here, the floating lamp. And you'll see it's an ability. I click it. I've learned the skill. I go ahead over here. We're going to take that off. We're going to bring the scale here, and we're just going to leave it base stats right now. And now I have to hold it to cast, and to dismiss, I tap. See there. Now, I probably still need some sounds to that, but right there, that is the skill in itself. It summons the equipment, it equips the equipment, it changes the stats that you changed, and then it ends the animation. So let's go ahead and look at the item itself. As you can see, this is the viewport. This is basically exactly everything in here is going to be the same as it was when we created as an artifact. The things that are changing over here are the item info and the skill stats. So we're going to come down here. Item info, pretty much everything's going to be an item info except for this. And now we're going to change the equip type to none. That's the only other thing. Everything else is going to be in the item info. Okay, so a floating lamp, we have the same thing here. And instead of use text being equipped, it'll now be learned. And a category will be abilities. So that's what's changed there. Its weight is obviously going to be nothing. Value can be whatever you want. Now, weapon stats isn't going to matter, but skill to use is what matters here. Skill to use is what skill will give you XP. So if you do not have this right set, when you're using the skill, you will not get experience in that skill or skill points in that skill if you do not have this set. So as you see here, I have already set this to 1. I have floating lamp as my skill. Magic floating lamp is what I have. Okay, now we're going to talk about the skill stats, and we're going to go over each every single one. Combat types is right here. You can add the combat type you want. So right now, combat types, there, as you know, we've used this when we made equipment. So if it can only be used like with a heavy spear or a light spear, this is where you put that. But it can be used with everything, I just have it selected as all, because this is just a magic spell. Okay, mana cost. This is the default mana cost of the spell. Same thing with stamina. This is the default mana cost of the skill. And then skill XP. This is the current amount of XP you have in the skill. This is not edited by the player. This will be edited at runtime through blueprints. Okay, level up cost. This is how much you want the skill to cost to level up for its first level. After that, it takes the default system of 1.5 times to cost ratio. So I will show you that real quick. I have tons of experience. I'll equip it. Here, I'll pick this up, learn it. Okay, bring it over here. Now, if you learn any, it doesn't matter where it's at. If you add experience, it'll always be there. So you see right now I have no experience. There we are. I add an experience. There. It's now level, that costs 200. It's actually 2 times. I forgot it's two times. Yep, that is definitely 2 times. So every time you level up the cost, so the beginning cost, it actually matters a lot. So in this case, since it's a low-level skill, maybe 100 default cost is a bit much. I think maybe a default cost of, well, I don't know. This is a light skill. Well, you can just choose whatever you want. I'm going to leave it at 100, I guess, because it actually can be pretty powerful in the sense that you don't have to have any type of lighting thing. You can see all across the map, and it won't affect NPCs being able to see you or anything like that, because I don't have any setup like that. Now, this is the current amount spent. Like I said, this is also blueprint done. This is this current skill level. This is also edited real time by blueprint, and the available points is also edited by edit real-time blueprints. However, if you want to, you can automatically already give, like if I were to give available points, that means this thing would start with 2 skill points. But I think that might mess up with other things when you reset the skill. It might make it so you might get more than you should. Okay, power level. This is the current power of your skill. And this is going to be when you create the actual blueprint, how much you're going to calculate the power of it and different things. This can do a lot of different stuff according to when you create your actual skill blueprint. So in my case, I have this tied to the brightness of it, and I have effectiveness tied to the radius of it. So this here, you're going to want to select these according to how you set up your blueprint and how you want to calculate it. Show power means that this will actually show up in the skill thing, in the skill menu. Effectiveness, this is also just like power. This is going to be set up in your blueprint. And we'll go over how I set up the blueprint. Okay, this will be set up in your blueprint. So effectiveness, whether or not you want to show effectiveness. Sometimes you might not want to show effectiveness, might not show power. You just might want the skill to, only cost something and might not want to show cost. So it's up to you. Type. So here, there's only two different types: none, magic, and melee. So this is a magic one. Mana cost. This is the default mana cost per level. So mana cost. This is when you have a cost, when you level up your cost, this is what it'll minus on the cost for mana and stamina. So if I wanted this to cost 2 points less, I would put 2. If I wanted to leave it at 1, I just leave it at 1. It is an integer. It cannot be, it's not be fractionated. So, and then cost min is the minimum value wanted to cost. Like if I didn't want this to ever cost any stamina, if I wanted to make it so you can get to the point where it never cost any stamina to even cast it, I put it a 0. Or if I wanted to have a min stamina cost of 5, that'd be 5. So, and then the show cost, obviously the same thing as the other show, whether or not you want to show the cost. And okay, so now this is how much power per level. So, power per level is it'll upgrade the points for power. See, points start at 3, and with power per level, and that means the next time I put a little points in power, it'll be 4. And the same thing works for effectiveness as well as mana. Okay, so effectiveness per level. So this is the cost. It's going to cost, if I put up power 1, it'll, instead of cost only 3, it'll cost 4. All right, so I can change this to 0 or make it 2 or whatever I want. This all according to however you feel you want your power to cost every level. Okay, and then there's effectiveness per level. Cost right now, just putting up effectiveness doesn't cost anything more for me. Most of my time I have effectiveness not costing any more mana. Okay, but effectiveness is the same thing with power. Every time you put up the power per level. So as this begins, effectiveness on this one is 2. If I wanted it to be 2, I could put 2. So instead of just gaining 1 per power, effectiveness per level, you gain 2 per power, 2 effectiveness per level. But I only wanted 1. Okay, so here, power name. You don't really want to have a power name in there or anything like that. These things here, originally I had it so each one had like a name of exactly what it did, and I found that in the UI it just ended up being a lot more UI gore. So mostly you want to leave name 1 and 2 empty, and you also want to leave description empty. These things, unless you want, these will add. I'll just show you exactly what it does here. So we're gonna put this here, and I'll show you what I mean by UI gore. There we are. So I added a name in there, and I'll go ahead and now grab it. So it probably actually just saved after I learned it, so we could jump in a little quicker here. There it is. That's what I mean by UI gore. See right there? Brightness. And so you can barely even see the 3. 4, 5, 6, 7. That's what I mean by UI gore. So you don't want to do that. So like I have this here. I had to add water to my cost on this one because I had to make the player know that it's costing water and 1 and 3 stamina to cast this. And water is a specific stat that you gain using your ice crystal spell. So this requires another spell to use. So sometimes you may want to have something in there, like I have water, but most of the times you're just going to want it to be nothing, or like you can add like M or whatnot. It's like have 10 meter M, but you want to try to keep this name down as much as possible, because otherwise you get this nasty UI glare. Okay, that said, let's jump right back to where we were at. Let's remove this. Now this you do want to have right here, power description. As you've seen, when I hovered over it, it said brightness. So every single one of your things you're going to want to have, this is the actual description when you're hovering over. So power description here, you're going to want to probably have some type of description for what that going up in that skill does. So as brightness makes, that's pretty obvious. Okay, effectiveness name, same thing as power. Now, let's also talk about this. I almost missed this, whole fractions and percentage. Sometimes you see that, like the one skill I was showing in the power, it had a percentage. So it did 121% damage melee of your weapon damage, or your actual melee damage, or maybe 120% of your magic damage. So when you hit power percentage, okay, and then fractions will show is like 0.1, 0.2, or fractions you can show is in fractions. So in our case, we're going to use whole numbers for this one, but basically fiddle around with these until you get the right display you want. It's pretty self-explanatory, but it might take a little bit to get it figured out. Okay, same thing with cost name here. This is the same thing going on. Like if I wanted to have it cost water, I had water here, and I had it as a whole as well. If you want something to cost, if you want it to cost a percentage of your mana and stamina, you could change that too, but you would also have to change that in your blueprint, your skill blueprint. Okay, now cost description, mana and stamina cost, when you're hovering over it. So you don't actually have to do that because it's pretty self-explanatory. Now this ability GA, this is the spell, this is the actual thing that performs the action. And this is actually the last thing we have to change on this setting. So we're going to go ahead and jump right to where it's at. This is the skill, that the gas ability that performs the action when this thing is actually hit. We're going to open it up. As you see here, I've already done it. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to have an 0.2 delay, because on holding, if we hold this one, it'll cast the spell. And if we're not holding it, if you just tap it, it'll dismiss. So that's for this type of spells. Most spells, you most likely will not have something like this. You might just want to go through with my different ones to look at my different blueprints. Okay. So in this case, we want to make sure that ongoing, this is our key states. These key states are set right here in the key state skills. Let's see, skill keys. Gotta find, here they are. Here's all my usability and index, slot 1, slot 2, slot 3, slot 4. These all set up here. These send the information to your blueprint. So whatever skill you're using, it'll grab it and it'll tell you the key. So you can have charge, you can have tap, you can have pretty much any type of spell you want to have using the keys. You're going to have to somehow denote that to the player that, hey, to use this spell, you have to hold it down, or to not use this spell, to use the spell, you just have to tap, or dismiss, or something along that line. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to get the skill we're using. This is what we set in this section up here, this here. This is the current skill that we're using. This will be passed through. No, you'll set the skill inside the thing, so that in just each skill, you want to set the skill. Some of them will actually have, probably should just do it. It's easier that way. And you get your stats, you get your skill stats. So this is the current skill stats. You want to get your mana and stamina cost, and make sure you actually have enough mana and stamina cost. And you also want to make sure that you can perform combat. If you can't perform combat, like if you're knocked down, well, unless you want your skill to be able to use if you're knocked down, or if you're being stunned, maybe a counter or a jump back. So like you may have like some type of parry. So when the character gets stun locked, he can use this skill to instantly teleport back 15 feet or something like that. So you might want to check it. You might want to change that around to, like, instead of make sure he can perform combat, make sure he can't perform combat. All right. So if this is not true, it'll do ohm check, which means it'll do a UI little blink up on top. If it doesn't have enough stamina or mana, it'll blink the stamina mana up at the top. of the screen, UI screen. And then done registers that after a certain amount of time, it'll delete this blueprint from the world. And we want to do that because we don't want a whole bunch of these blueprints being spammed around the world. Now, I have it delayed because sometimes if the player uses the skill right away again, that way I'm not instantly respawning. I'm basically doing some form of streaming. If you think the player is going to be using the skill over and over and over again in the same session, then you're going to want to make the delay to this blueprint to be deleted a little bit longer. And it'll always check if there is already this type of blueprint in the world. If it is this type of blueprint in the world, it will use this blueprint again. So you don't have to keep spawning. And I do not want you to use, oh, this is gather water. My bad. Didn't need to have that one. Did I mess anything up here? No. Okay. Yeah, we don't want to have that one open. That was just an example one. I was going to make sure I got everything worked. All right. Now, this here will play the montage. This is usually going to have something along this way. I have a couple different ways of playing montage. I've decided to use it on this one because it's just a little easier to understand. I have a whole perform action montage and different things. But in this case, we're just going to go ahead and use this. Use the play montage. But if you want to see the other examples, there is many examples of different skills in the system. So you'll just go over them. You're going to have to know Blueprint a decent amount to actually be able to use, create skills and abilities to know what you're doing. You just look over, find something that's sort of like what you're after and see if you can mimic it. Okay. So in this case, the moment it happens, we're going to set our current state. That's our combat component. We're setting our current state into a general action. And then for float weapon, we're having the weapon float away and lightning appear in my hands. So if I didn't want lightning appearing in my hands, I could change it to none or fire, wind, lightning. Maybe I should eventually add a you can add I'll click on this to show you this whole setup here. You can add to the blueprint type and add light or dark attributes. And then what happens is it'll attach these little Niagara effects to your hands. So if you had like a lightning, you could pull that off and it'll affect a lightning effect to your hand. So that's, you can pretty much do anything with that to make little cool effects. Like I said, adding lighting effects and sound makes a lot of big oomph. As you notice, I have no sound in this skill at all, so it kind of seems slightly dead when using it. So after the notify begins, because this spell has a notify, this animation has a notify, it'll spawn it. And to spawn it, it'll set the action cost of it. So this means that it's setting the action cost of a current action skill, and I'm not actually making it cost yet. I'm just setting the action cost. You'll use this a lot for almost all your spells because when you're using it, you want to do that. And then I might have messed up, not had it call cost. Did I have it call cost? No, I do not have it call cost. So I will need to call cost. I've got to remember exactly how to do that. Skill modify cost. There we are. Wait, nope. I've got to look exactly how I do that. This is what I mean by looking at the blueprints, seeing what there is, and setting it up. So this is my old water one, and I want to have it during charge. It's going to have, there's a skill and action. Oh, wait, this is the action cost. Okay, yeah, my bad. I do have it actually costing. Let's set action cost. I'm not sure it's doing action. Do I have here charge? Set current action. Yes, here, I need this. Combat action, set current action. This will actually have the mana and stamina taken at the thing here. So this is the action cost. This will happen at the end. So we'll go over that in a second. Here we are. Now, we're spawning it. This is going to be the part of blueprint that is irrelevant to most skills because this is going to be specifically to this type of skill. In this case, we're going to check if the player is currently got a float lamp skill equipped. If it doesn't, then it will equip one and it'll equip it in the non-slot. And then it'll cast to it. It'll make this set and it'll say the lamp exists. However, if one does already exist, it will just get it, cast to it, set it, and lamp exist. Okay, and then after these are done, it'll delay for a second. It'll set the mana degrade on the equipment. So this is just a buff that will degrade your max mana. In this case, because of the spell, it's a persistent effect, and I hate having to cast spells over, and over again. So a lot of games will have it that you'll cast like a light spell and it'll last for like 40, 50 seconds, and then you'll have to cast it again. I can't stand that. Now, it's possible for you to do that, but I made it so the system, so if you use a mana degrade, it just means that it's going to continuously have your max mana denigrated, and you will, be persistent. I like this system much better. Okay. Equip buff stats. This will equip the stat mana degrade buffed. And then here I have set in the brightness skill of the lamp. So we'll go here into my event, and we're going to go up here. And you see here, I am setting the Niagara lightness brightness scale and the Niagara lightness radius scale. And we made those two variables in the last tutorial when we made the artifact version of this thing. And these are set. These are set according to my power and my effectiveness. And since I want them, the settings in them are pretty low. I had times at 0.1 and the brightness 0.1 as well. So we have our power and effectiveness. This is what I was talking about when I was doing this. These will affect how bright the system is and how the radius of it. So as I was saying, it's inside my blueprint that these things are affected. You're going to want to have each one of your skills are going to have a different blueprint effect, most likely. Like if you want power to be the percentage of melee damage or the percentage of magic damage you're doing, effectiveness maybe how fast your projectile flies, or the effectiveness how big the area effect or area effect of your slam down is, or maybe effectiveness could also be the effectiveness of, like, if you have a weapon enchantment like ice, this will affect how much stat damage that the effect icy stat effect it'll apply. Okay, and then after that I have end, and end is just ending the montage. So we have a different montage that blends out real quick. We delay, we take off, we bring back the weapon to our hand, and we take off the magic effect, and we hit done. But we also at the same time modify our max XP cost, our XP. So for every time we cast a spell, we're going to get 10 skill points towards it. And then we have the cost. So now this is going to cost a little bit of magic and stamina when it's cost. And that's pretty much everything except for the done effect here. As this is just here was dismissed done. Oh, did I? Okay, so done is actually targeting the base GP value, base ability. So we're going to click this, and it'll open up my base here. And this is what done does. This it's a retriggable delay. It'll make sure that the character is still valid. Sometimes the character can, if you're killing an NPC, the character will not be valid, and it'll make a mess. Okay, and then it'll make sure the weapon floats back to the hands. It'll get rid of all magic on hands. It'll unequip any hyper armor if your skills sometimes have a hyper armor. Hyper armor is like when I'm like doing a special slam forward charge with my sword attack. I don't want the player to be easily interruptible, so it equips a hyper armor. You can click on that and look at a hyper armor, exactly how that works. We're not going to go over that now. And then it'll remove the GA, which means it removes the blueprint itself from my current combat component. This was what allows the player to use it over and over again without having to respawn it. So if this will remove that from the list and let it know that it no longer exists. It'll also set our melee skill to none. Some skills do give a melee skill. So like if I have an enchantment on my weapon, every time I swing in my weapon, I'm getting skill points towards that enchantment. All right, and then it'll destroy the actor. And that is pretty much everything there is to do with the skills. As you can see, it is a little bit more in depth, but it's actually, well, I can't say it's intuitive. I'm not sure. To me, it's intuitive because I've been doing it for a very long time, and I have like close to like 30 some skills probably already set, made, and designed. But that's how it works. And so in this case, we want to go, we set our power brightness default to 4. We're going to go ahead and crank our brightness way up on this, and it's going to cost us 14 stamina, 14 magic, which is a decent amount of cost. And we'll see here, I'll hold it down, forgot to hold it down. Boom, there. Now you can see up here in the corner, it cost us all that. It denigrated my max mana, and it's actually pretty bright. If we can test out the brightness in here, where it's dark, I just close the door out behind me, you know, the lights will go off. Here we go. Here we are. You can see that it's very bright right around me, but it's not got very long reach. Yep, it's not got very long reach, so let's change that up a bit. We're going to go and take this down to 8, and we're going to go and take you up to 8, and we're going to have it cost 8 all around. Here we go. We're going to unsummon it. Now we'll summon it again. Boom. And there you see that its area of effect is much longer, and even though it's not quite as bright, it is very nice. That's actually a much better effect. Actually, I think I might need to make it cost mana and stamina cost for the effectiveness in this case, because if I only have it down at 3 brightness, and that there 3 extra skill points, let's cast it. Well, yeah, it still makes it quite plausible. Yes, effectiveness actually seems to be the most costing one on this case. So in that case, with this ability, effectiveness is actually really very useful. So we're going to go back to float lamp skill, and we're going to have our effectiveness actually cost mana and stamina cost when it's used. Power level here, effectiveness cost. We'll have one each. So I can't just spam it too much. Hit play. Oh, I don't have the skill because I didn't save after grabbing it. Let me go back and grab it real quick. Ta-da. There we are. Equip it. Okay. Skill. And now, as I bring up the effectiveness, you can see the mana cost is going up as well. So effectiveness is going up, brightness up 1, and that means that this thing should probably be pretty ready to go and make itself a pretty useful skill. Here we are. Boom. There we are. It's got a nice big area effect, and it does cost me permanently cost some of my mana right up here at the top. But it lights up the area really well. It's kind of better than my lantern. There we are. Because it doesn't have all the shadows casting around. It's just kind of annoying. But hey, you know, if you want it that way, you do it that way. So I unsummon this, and that's what my lantern looks like. You can probably if you want, you can make it so you can buy better quality lanterns. But in this case, I think the light spell is far more effective. And unequip my lamp, or just turn it off, visibility off on it. And that is how you do skills. If you have liked this tutorials, likes, shares, and comments are always welcome. Any questions or suggestions would be greatly welcomed, and I will get back to you as soon as possible. LordMaddog, signing off.